Casual here. I've been asked a number of times recently which class should I play when Outriders launches on April the 1st, or even which is the best class. There is a simple answer to that second question, which is we don't know yet, because so much of this will be dependent on the legendary armor sets that you are using, the legendary weapons, the build, solo or in a party, and of course your playstyle. On top of that, unless you are M-tashed, we haven't even seen the end game, so a lot of the guides out there right now on this are pure speculation. I'm sure that over the next few weeks, as we all level to max level and hit the end game, meta builds will emerge, but right now that is all in front of us and something to look forward to. I get though that picking a main is really important for many of you, as most of us don't have time to level 4 different characters to max level and grind for the right gear sets. We need to pick a main now and stick with it. For me, the answer to the question really comes down to what sort of playstyle do you prefer. Each of the classes in Outriders has a unique playstyle that I think is the most important thing to consider when picking a class. Let's have a look at each of these in turn. One thing though, I've seen a lot of content creators comparing the classes back to classes in Destiny or The Division. I understand why they do, but I think that it is misleading. There are aspects of this game that are similar to those games, but the playstyle for me is completely different and brings much more of an MMORPG feel to the genre than anyone has done before. The Technomancer is the most unique class in this game. Unlike the other classes, it does not do direct elemental or energy damage, its skills being focused on deploying mines, launchers or weapons into combat. These are on a relatively long cooldown, which makes sense because they persist in combat for a period of time. As a result of that, it plays the most passively of all the classes, being much more reliant on weapon damage rather than skills. With a boost to long range damage, you will typically be at the back of the map, picking off enemies from behind cover. This leads to one of the challenges with this class when playing solo. Interrupting elite bosses is critical for progression in this game. The Devastator and Trickster are close range classes and so can use melee abilities to interrupt elite abilities. The Pyromancer has interrupt and immobilize direct skills that allow you to keep elites in check. The Technomancer's interrupt skills available in the demo are Shrapnel, the mine, and Pain Launcher, the missile launcher. The issue with both of these is that there is a delay before they activate and interrupt, so coming up against an elite with the ability from the ashes can be incredibly frustrating to deal with. I'm sure you have enough of that red orb appearing as I am. Things will get easier once Taller Destruction is available, which allows you to call up a rocket launcher which interrupts, but even then, long cooldowns mean that it is oh so easy to be caught without an available interrupt. The other challenge for the Technomancer is that while its healing looks good on paper, activating on damage rather than a kill, it is actually a little weaker than the other classes. If you like to be ultra aggressive, don't want to use cover at all, then this class is going to be a real struggle for you. One thing that really helps with your healing is blighted rounds. Not only does the toxic effect do damage over time, but that damage also heals you over time. Get toxic applied to as many enemies as you can and you will see the healing flood in. Where the Technomancer will excel is in group play. It is the only class that has a direct on-demand healing skill, which also heals turrets. It has significant team buffs available to it through its skill trees for healing, weapon damage and damage mitigation. It can freeze enemies, making it easier for the team to take them down. And it can apply vulnerable to enemies affected by its skills, a huge 25% damage buff for the entire team. So if you like a playstyle that is more like The Division, if you like to play in groups, and if you are happy to be the non-flashy team member who makes the team work, then the Technomancer will be a great class for you. The Pyromancer is also a very unique class in terms of its playstyle, the shortest skill cooldowns of any class. For me, this class plays more like World of Warcraft character than a looter shooter at times, as you are spamming your abilities one after the other, and you absolutely need to in order to heal. The Pyromancer's healing is activated when you, or your team member, kill a marked enemy, i.e. those that have been hit with your skills. To play this class viably, you need to have a rotation, weaving slower, harder hitting skills with those with shorter cooldowns, and then using your weapon damage to heal. The effect of the Pyromancer skills is similar to the Technomancer, with an effect that immobilizes enemies, Ash, and one that causes damage over time, Burn. There are subtle differences between the two though. When you set an enemy on fire, there is an animation which momentarily breaks their actions, which doesn't happen with Toxic. Because the Pyromancer only heals on a kill, the burn damage over time does not boost your healing in any way. Finally, the Pyromancer skills are direct effect skills. What I mean by this is that there is no delay other than the animation between casting them and their impact. That makes it much easier for the Pyromancer to interrupt or immobilize elite enemies. The Pyromancer will appeal to players who like a very active playstyle. To get the most out of it, and indeed even to survive, you need to be constantly using your skills, applying marks and burn. There will be optimal rotations, and your ability to deliver those while under fire will decide whether you are setting the house on fire or not. The Devastator and the Trickster on paper look very similar. They're both close range classes. They have higher health than the other classes. The Trickster even has a shield which, due to it providing damage mitigation rather than armour, make it particularly strong against elites, albeit the Devastator's Bounty Hunter node in its class tree is possibly the most overpowered node in the game for elites. They both specialise in shotguns and assault weapons, and they both have the ability to apply more interrupts than the other classes, making them the ideal ones to lock down elites. It is their skills and their effects though that set them apart. The Devastator has a number of skills focused purely on protection, with Golem being the best all-round damage mitigation skill in the game, and Reflect Bullets combining physical damage mitigation with some awesome damage dealing in a way that screams of the Matrix. In contrast, the Trickster is more agile, with skills that allow it to move around the combat zone, leaving your enemies shooting at thin air. Many of the Devastator skills apply bleed, which does damage over time to moving enemies. Before I go on, it is worth flagging that if you or an enemy is stationary, bleed has no effect, which really reduces its effectiveness compared to burn or toxic. The Trickster applies slows with its skills, making your mobility even more effective and allowing you to use buffs to your damage from behind to wipe out enemies very quickly. And that really is the thing that differentiates these two classes. The Devastator is a lumbering behemoth which absorbs damage and gives it back, prevents elites from using abilities, and is the stereotypical tank for the team. I suspect that the Devastator will be very gear dependent, needing the right mods, armour and resistance to make it completely viable in its role in the endgame. The Trickster is not designed to be a tank, though it can be built to be one. It is meant to be played as a constantly moving assassin, a ninja who gets in, deals damage, and then gets the hell out of there. It is probably the simplest class to play because it has the skills to deal a ton of damage to low level enemies, and has enough damage mitigation to allow you to survive most circumstances, but one of the toughest to really excel at and deliver top of the charts damage without dying. Personally, I like all of the classes, and my views on all of them have changed the more I play them. Releasing a demo was an inspired decision by the developers, and I would encourage you all to get in there before Thursday and try all the classes out to get a feel for which one suits you best. Until next time, casual out.